Mindfulness has changed my life. In my 20s and 30s, my life was mostly chaos. I lived based on what I was told and needed to be happy, forgoing my own intuition and losing myself in the process. I found myself in my mid-20s, a wife, raising 3 small kids, trying to finish my nursing degree in hopes to find happiness and freedom that everyone claimed that these steps would achieve. Unfortunately, after graduation, life became even more chaotic. I spent many long nights staring up at the ceiling, pondering what was next, and when the promised happiness, contentment, and freedom would finally show its face. It didn't. And soon I found myself in the throes of a hard and fast addiction just to numb out. What was I numbing out from exactly? Well, the realization that I made decisions for my life that didn't fit into the actual life I wanted. I'm 11 years sober now, 7 years in remission from ovarian cancer, and I know these 2 events needed to happen for me to wake up and change. You see, for nearly 2 decades, I pushed myself to achieve the American dream, worked multiple jobs, was a yes man to everyone and everything, bought multiple homes, even though I'm not much of a homeowner material. And I was miserable. But I thought, well, this is the American dream, right? This is what everyone wants. Family, house, cars, rinse and repeat. So why was I not happy? It took addiction, cancer, and a pandemic to fully jostle my reluctant mind free from the invisible chains I allowed myself to wear, to fit in with everyone, to be happy. I want to be freed from this invisible prison. That's not to say that the American dream is a bad thing, but it definitely isn't for everyone. If it's even achievable anymore, well, that's a whole other topic. The hustle is very much against my nature, yet I force myself to go faster, harder, longer, and do more and more. Throughout my entire life, I recall hundreds of times I've heard folks tell me, think faster, move faster, work faster, clean faster, do faster. Faster, faster, faster. If you work hard, they say, you will make it. If you don't, you're a loser, a drain on the economy, and so on. And so I worked, and I worked, and I accumulated more and more stuff, as well as more debt. But I found myself less and less fulfilled. Physical ailments started to creep in, my joints hurt. I was dealing with terrible sciatica and constant headaches. My anxiety was through the roof, and I felt like no matter how hard I tried, no matter what advice I took, I never made it. I didn't make it anywhere near the success that I was told I would have. I felt hollow and empty. I often wished I could go to sleep and not wake up again. What in the world is going on? Well, I was living a life that was not intuitive to my nature, spirit, or my true self. It all felt very superficial. I desired to stick my feet in the earth, breathe fresh air, watch the sun rise and fall on wide and vast land where I can grow my own food, make my own clothes, and live mindfully and intentionally. It was only when I removed myself from the noise of a culture super saturated and obsessed with the pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality that I was able to finally breathe and discover what was important to me. Acceptance. I had to accept that I was different, neurodivergent even, and that meant what might fulfill me isn't what might fulfill others. Now, this was hard for someone who was always feeling out of place, awkward, and misunderstood. I dedicated most of my time, energy, and preparations to fit in and not stand out like a sore thumb. I wanted nothing more than to fit in and be connected. And it was more than being liked, more than a popularity contest. I just wanted to belong. To all of a sudden switch gears was stressful and scary. I was worried. For starters, who am I? What do I like? What don't I like? For someone with such a good sense of self in their youth, this was embarrassing. I also had to accept that what others wanted, I did not. Again, I'm not shaming anyone for their life's trajectory. It was an important step that I had to take. I had to accept that I am sensitive, thoughtful, and gentle. Things that are seen as weak, woke, and undesirable. I yearn to live off the land one day, grow my own food, live on a manageable homestead, and live as our ancestors did years ago. So I may not be everyone's cup of tea, and that's okay. Mindfulness. Mindfulness has become a buzzword that everyone is talking about. It's one thing to talk about and a totally other thing to implement. For starters, you must slow down. That's the essence of mindfulness. Mindfulness is simply to be present, both physically and mentally. While my natural self is mindful, thoughtful, and slow, I'd been conditioned to move faster, quicker, to fit in and to appease everyone around me. I'd done this for decades, and even though it was something I hated doing, well, it became a part of me. And try as I might, I never gained or felt the connection of belonging that I very much desired. The key was meditation. It forces you to breathe and to become aware of your body and your thoughts and the sounds and smells around you. It is sitting with focus and attention to the present, not thinking about the laundry or what is waiting for you at work when you go back. Mindful meditation takes practice. At first, I was very impatient with myself because my mind would wander, my legs would fidget. Turns out, that's perfectly normal and you just need to refocus and continue. But once I submitted to it, my mind really began to change. I started to become hyper aware of my body. What caused it to tense up or relax became of particular interest. I began to see my true self. I'm a deep thinker. I enjoy quiet contemplation. And I began to feel complex feelings, deep pain, sorrow, happiness, and joy. Eventually, this led to me becoming vegan for a third time. This is where I noticed more changes. I felt lighter. The sciatica and chronic pains that I once had went away. I'm a humanitarian. I guess that's the elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. I only became aware of this recently, but I do feel the pain of others. And I became more connected to that when I started to meditate. It was in this meditation I remembered why I became a vegetarian at 13. I didn't want to take part in the death of animals. I was intrigued of the idea of being a pacifist. But once the grind of my 20s hit, I went into default mode, started listening to everyone around me rather than myself and my own intuition. Began eating meat again, dove headfirst into motherhood, wifehood, work, college, and the busyness of all of it. That was what I thought was the definition of success. Push everyone out of the way to get what you want. That's how I thought it was supposed to go. And I ignored that deep down, something just didn't feel right. It was off. And I knew I was going to crash and burn. But I couldn't stop it. I just kept going. And again, I was miserable. This went against my very nature and I struggled. What has always been hard for me is discrimination, injustice, and inequality. While Buddhist teachings explain that we all suffer, it is important to me that we don't cause more harm and suffering. I have a very hard time understanding war, hatred, and intolerance. I am enamored with various cultures and love learning about them, adore LGBTQIA folks, and want nothing more than the world to live in harmony. Idealistic, I know, but even some form of that is better than none. My current struggle? Cognitive dissonance. It's really at the forefront of my life right now. I've made all these changes internally. I've implemented mindfulness techniques that I incorporate daily. I take time for stillness and slowness. I eat vegan, and I cook from scratch about 85% of the time. And I'm active where I can be with volunteering and supporting anyone I can. However, the one element I have yet to shake, the hardest of all, is the 8 to 5 grind. So while my mind and heart are in a space of mindfulness, love, and compassion, My physical being is still in the tired, old, and worrisome rat race. Why? Because I'm stuck in the system. Okay, perhaps stuck isn't the right word. Tangled. I'm tangled in the system. As much as I desire to not be dependent upon it, I am. How so? Well, for starters, it would be nearly impossible to leave my job with our current entanglement. I work mostly hybrid, luckily. Considering our only car just bit the dust last week and I'm 4 miles away from the nearest mass transit, that's scary. Now the washer's been broke for about 3 months, and we were driving our clothes to the laundromat. Now with the car gone, luckily my husband has an electric bike with panniers. We can stuff those, take trips to the laundromat. My monthly bills aren't much. They include rent, electric, internet, cell phones, food. Oh yeah, and a $1,500 a month garnishment that I have for the next 5 years. In an effort to fit in amidst the roller coaster of my 20s and to achieve the dreams that everyone said I should be achieving, I took out a massive private student loan. At the time, I felt it was the only way I could get through school. You see, my husband had become mentally ill at that point, and he was unable to work. It was up to me to provide. And while the loan was originally only $30,000, it is now over $75,000, totaling my loans to over $101,000. Now I have a $1,500 a month garnishment for the next 5 years. Can't afford a lawyer to decrease the garnishment. Can't afford a car to lease or buy. Definitely can't afford to move, and honestly, there isn't anywhere cheaper. We use our bikes as a means of transportation, which is great actually. It's great for mindfulness and it's great for exercise. And of course we can utilize Ubers. However, when I do have to go into the office for 2 weeks, every 10 weeks, it's going to cost me about $1,200 in Uber fees. That's double my weekly income with this garnishment. And that's what I mean when I say I'm entangled in the system. I often dream of moving, buying a plot of land and living on it. Perhaps one day I will. Where we currently live, there is zero outdoor space, but luckily we live close, about 1.5 miles away from a very large park with biking, hiking, fishing, boating, disc golf, campgrounds, etc. But I yearn for something more. I want to wake up every morning, look out my window, see the sunrise, see nothing but fields and trees for miles and miles. I want to know what it feels like to rely on me, my own 2 hands, my own 2 feet, to grow my own food, and to rough it out. I think that lifestyle is still easier than the one I'm currently living. I hope one day to untangle myself from the system so I can live my dream mindfully, hopefully, and peacefully.